Debemos aprender de la historia.
We must learn from history and cannot play Russian roulette with the fate of millions of people. The powers involved in this conflict must immediately cease hostilities and commit to dialogue and diplomacy. And the rest of us must act consistently, defending now the same values that we defend when we talk about Ukraine.
So we're going to talk about the radical socialist prime minister of Spain, who decided to cut off the United States of America and not help the United States of America, even though they are an EU ally, trade partner with the United States of America. And he is panicking because Trump decided to call him out and say, you're really not going to stand with the United States of America while all of this is happening, while they're going after Iran. And so why this is an interesting conversation is because Pedro Sanchez ended up folding. Not only did he fold, but we got big news coming out from Caroline Leavitt. And also we have, of course, one of our guys, up north, who we definitely think is a radical socialist communist who is working with China. Remember, this guy decided to welcome in China, knowing that China is an ally to Iran and is an adversary. It's a anti-US dollar, US monetary system. That's the campaigns that China has been running now for a very long time. And, this guy right here, Mark Carney, decided to do work with China. So Canada, America is no longer a reliable ally. We reaffirm our strategic partnership with China. Remember when they said that? Also, Canada, why didn't the United States of America share its secret military plans with us? How will we share military plans with you when you are working with China? China is giving weapons to Iran, and literally China and Iran are literally in the BRICS nations. So these guys are just like Keir Starmer. They have become irrelevant. The UK has become irrelevant. Unfortunately for the EU countries, they have become irrelevant, aside from trade and even our NATO countries. What type of stunt is this that you are not going to share your ports with the United States of America during wartime? Well, we got an update, right? Pedro Sanchez decided, he made a speech about the United States of America, anti-United States of America. He wants to appease his crowd, And again, Spain is already going through a lot, right? They're already going through a lot. But here's the news. White House says Spain will cooperate with the United States military. This comes after President Trump just announced that the United States of America has completely cut off all trade with Spain after far leftist Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez refused to support the United States and allow American forces to use their military bases. Well, take a listen to Trump doing this, and then we'll talk about Pedro Sanchez folding and Mark Carney as well. Take a listen.
Everybody was enthusiastic about it. Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases. And that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it. But we don't have to. But they were unfriendly. And so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people. But they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they would have agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain.
Look, Trump has come out and said Spain decided to do this. We'll cut them off. And again, when it comes to these NATO countries and these EU trade partners, these guys, what they're doing some of this No Kings Rally protest that happens in the United States of America. They're doing it outside of the United States of America. And so when you look at what's actually going on, we go to the Wall Street Journal, apparently, right? Wall Street Journal says, White House says Spain to cooperate with the U.S. military. Spain denies its position changed. So we got a huge back and forth here. But here is a Caroline Leavitt breaking it down and saying this. Following President Trump's threat to ban all trade with Spain, the Spanish government has bent the knee and is now cooperating with the U.S. military. That's how it's done. Here's the update from Caroline Leavitt.
So because Spain is a member of the EU, does that at all put a wrinkle in the president's plan for a trade embargo with them?
With respect to Spain, I think they heard the president's message yesterday
loud and clear. And it's my understanding over the past several hours, they've agreed to cooperate with the U.S. military. And so I know that the U.S. military is coordinating with their counterparts in Spain, but the president expects all of our European allies, of course, to cooperate in this long sought after mission, not just for the United States, but also for Europe, to crush the rogue Iranian regime that, again, not only threatens America, but also threatens our European allies as well.
So let me get this straight. So you have the Gulf Muslim states cooperating with the United States of America against Iran, right? So you have Qatar, Kuwait, you have Dubai, you have Saudi Arabia cooperating with the United States of America rather than Spain. Isn't that something interesting? Now, again, look, the United States of America is going through a change. We know this, right? Whether you are pro-Israel or not, whether you agree with these strikes or not, the United States of America is defending the U.S. dollar. How do they defend the U.S. dollar and the U.S. monetary system? This is a conversation that I have with people. This is one of the main reasons why I talk about Bitcoin on my channel all the time. Unfortunately, after 1971 and after the gold standard was pretty much taken away by, the Nixon shock, and we started printing money, and we started operating on a deficit because we are the world's reserve currency, we have these countries that try to rise up, right? A lot of these countries, when they don't follow the order, the United States of America sanctions them. And now, again, a lot of people, whether they agree with that or not, the United States of America is going to do what they can to make sure that they are the dominant, that they remain in the dominant order. So when you see these countries getting sanctioned, that is United States dollar. That is the United States monetary policy, that if you try to go outside of that, you're just not going to win against the United States of America. And so when a country like Iran tries to build nuclear weapons, they're doing it because they hate the United States of America, and they hate, for religious purposes, they hate Israel, and they go back and forth on that. So whether you agreed or not, I think the United States of America, for the next century to come, they are drawing lines on the sands. This goes far beyond Trump. People think this is just Trump. No, Kamala would have been advised to do the same thing. But will Kamala have done it? I don't freaking think so. So there's a lot to talk about there. But let's go back to Canada. Let's go back to Canada and Spain, because now Spain has folded. They have decided to tell the United States, no, you can't use our military bases. And all of a sudden, they are now backtracking that because they know that cutting off all trade, the United States dollar, trading in dollars, it's a big problem for them. So the United States of America has all the leverage, has all the cards, because we hold a monetary system. Does that make sense? Now, has that been used for bad before? Has it been used for good? The conversation is, these countries have become so anti-Trump. That's the real issue here, is that they become so anti-Trump that they have been blinded by doing the right thing here, and it's standing with their partners, even if they agree with them at that very moment, at least standing with them in solidarity. But now they're getting hit and getting cut off, so now they fold. So again, when you don't hold all the cards, or you don't hold all the chips, you realize that you are in big, big trouble. So here is Mark Carney. He wrote a letter. He wrote a letter to the United States of America. And, these countries have become so ineffective that they're writing letters and complaining that they have not been involved by the United States of America. And, they're complaining all over the place. Right? Canada's Prime Minister, Mark Carney, the United States and Israel have acted without engaging the United Nations or consulting allies, including Canada. Really? My boy, you literally had China, and you're no different than Venezuela, right? You're trying to exclude the United States of America by working with countries that hate the United States of America, right? And that's what these guys don't understand.
We support efforts to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent its regime from further threatening international peace and security. Because Canada is taking the world as it is, not passively waiting for a world we wish to be. We do, however, take this position with regret, because the current conflict is another example of the failure of the international order. Despite decades of UN Security Council resolutions, the tireless work of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and the succession of sanctions and diplomatic frameworks, Iran's nuclear threat remains. And now The United States and Israel have acted without engaging the United Nations or consulting allies, including Canada. So where to from here? With a rapidly spreading conflict and growing threats to civilian life. Canada reaffirms that international law binds all belligerents. We condemn the strikes carried out by Iran on civilians and civilian infrastructure across.
First of all, this guy is complaining again. He is complaining that they weren't foretold. Like, do we have to go back to China and Canada? Like, do we have to go back to why? Right? Like, do we have to go to why again, Canada secures renewed market access with China to boost exports and strengthen economic collaboration. These guys have gone full-blown China. Like, since Ministers Carney's visit to Beijing, China has also resumed beef market access. So these guys are going trade deal for trade deal, right? And France was also saying, we got to bring China to the table. And so, China allies, with Iran, right? When we start breaking all this down, you start to realize, hey, China and Iran maintain a 25-year strategic partnership solidified in 2021, focusing on economic cooperation, energy security, and joint efforts to counter Western influence, right? China acts as a critical economic lifeline for Iran, purchasing the majority of its oil despite sanctions. However, this partnership is asymmetric, and with China maintaining a balancing act. So again, China had the same thing with Venezuela. So no matter what side of the aisle you fall on, whether it's anti-war, whether it's anti-Israel, whatever your sentiment may be, you have to understand geopolitics to this extent, right? You have to understand that one of the main things that Trump is doing, and again, this goes far beyond Trump. This goes to our monetary policies and who we are as the United States of America. Yes, you can argue that the United States of America's dollar is backed by nothing, but then you look at what happened in Iran and you realize the United States of America's government dollar is backed by the military, right? It's backed by military operations. So it's not that the United States is backed by nothing, it's that they can fully print and inflations. So there's a lot of issues with the United States of America. And so it's one thing to criticize your government for these strikes. It's one thing to be Tucker. It's one thing to be Megyn Kelly. I think those are fair assessments. People get mad at them. They think they're traitors. No, right? I understand why people are against these strikes, why some people are against, Israel's, dreams of expansion and Netanyahu. I've expressed my dear sentiments when it comes to this. But here's one thing that you cannot miss is that just because you don't want these strikes and you don't want an extended war, you don't want these things, does not mean you go and become a fanatic of Iran, a fanatic against the United States of America, when you know that these allies would love to see you literally dead. Like, they would love to literally see you gone. Now, would they love to work with the United States of America? I don't know, right? Because some of these religious factors do factor in that the United States of America is allied with Israel, does cause these religious tensions that make people do things like Iran has done for the last, 20 years. So again, is the United States of America and Israel's relationship going to go away tomorrow? Absolutely not. There's some people that believe that this relationship with Israel is to usher in end times, to usher in, who the Jews believe is their Messiah. There's a lot of friction when it comes to Christians and Jews and Muslims and all over the place. But when you talk directly about what it is that Iran really wants, right? The Islamic Republic of Iran, what do they really want versus what the people of Iran want versus what the people of, what do we want? Well, you have to understand geopolitics. You have to understand what it is that's happening, the world structure, world order. And that's why you have people like Canada being excluded, right? Leaders like Mark Carney being excluded. That's why you have Spain coming out and they're folding right away because they don't want to be cut off from trade, even if they don't agree with Trump. Because again, when you hold the world's reserve currency and the greatest military in the world, you realize that you just don't hold no cards. You have to fold, right? And so as a United States citizen, you have to ask yourself this one question. And I know these conversations are very hard to have, right? These conversations are very hard. There's people that unsubscribe from me all the time as soon as I start talking about these types of things. But you have to have fair assessments. You have to have open dialogue about what it is that you agree or disagree on. So that way you can either be on the same page or not. Was these strikes on the on Iran, America first, or were they not? Do they affect America in the long term? Well, if you eliminate Iran, you literally weaken China, you weaken Russia, you weaken this BRICS nations, you weaken anybody that is against the United States dollar. You make Israel better and bigger, the United States of America benefits. Now you can flip that and say, well, Israel is going to go on to be even more powerful. There's rumors that they have nuclear weapons. Why do they have nuclear weapons? There's a rumor out there that Israel was going to force Trump's hand because they were going to use a nuclear weapon against Iran because Iran's threats and all these threats from Lebanon, the Houthis. So all of these things do matter. These conversations do matter. I'm not saying they don't matter, but we have to look at it from a geopolitical standpoint. Why now? Why now? And I think this has to do a lot more with money and structure, sanctions, power, than it has to do with religion at this point. And I think that Iran knew that. I think that China knows that. I think Canada knows that. I think Spain knows that. But they will use what people know best is your emotional attachment to a religion, an emotional attachment versus them using that against you. So I think that that's where we're at. The conversations are great to have. I love having them all the time. There's a lot of stuff happening internally. A lot of people want to stop talking about this, and I get that. But when you look at the China and Iran relationship, when you look at all of these things that happened in, of course, Venezuela, you start to look at, okay, this all is a correlation of something. And yes, it does benefit Israel. And a lot of people don't want that. And I get that. I get why some may think that this is, Israel's war instead of the United States war. But Israel and the United States aren't going anywhere. So, or things could change in the future because there's a lot of people my age that they just don't want that relationship. They want the United States to focus more on the United States instead of expanding into the Middle East. But how does the United States of America expand worldwide without the Middle East? Right? So again, great conversations to have. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Let me know what it is that you guys think. And I would love to hear back from you guys about this.